Hey there, and welcome to YAS, a stripper podcast. On this podcast, we'll discuss how classifying each other as people and workers is dangerous to society and marginalized groups of people. We'll also talk about the climate in and outside of the strip clubs and all of the amazing things that strippers do. And of course, we'll talk about all of the things in between. I'm your queen, AM Davies, and this is YAS, a stripper podcast.
Hello, everyone. Yeah. I'm here with Sabrina, an old friend of mine. We haven't seen each other IRL in like 10 years. Hi, Sabrina.
Hi, how are you?
I'm pretty good today. Today's all right. You know, I try to be honest these days when people ask that. Today I'm all right. Yeah, how are you?
I like that. I saw on your Instagram talking about saying that like I'm good and I'm paraphrasing because it's been a while since I've seen it, but I'm good and things are also kind of like this, which could be kind of shitty, but like I'm good. I'm hanging in there, and I loved when you named that and put that out there.
Yeah, we're just so conditioned to be like, I'm good. How are you? It's like, I'm good. And like really underneath, we're like, I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been practicing it more lately.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
Yeah, so I am good. I am tired. When I read the little the blurb or the email of what's going to happen today, and it said, appear camera ready. I had this idea that I'd like do my hair and like do my nails. Not a chance. I just got this puppy, and who would have thought that this tiny little thing could bring me and my entire household to our knees?
100%.
I mean,
it's like a baby.
Work. Yes, it's like a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. So,
what kind of puppy did you get?
I got a Labrador Retriever.
Cute.
She's so cute, and part of me, it's like I like to rescue animals, like to save animals, and this animal is being raised to be a service animal for a combat veteran.
Wow.
So we got what was going to be like a good animal, and she, we paid for her to be alive, so I feel like extra responsible.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have conversations about whether or not to buy a bred dog or rescue a dog? And like, did you go, at least discuss that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And because of COVID, like all the shelters around my area, they had no puppies, and you kind of have to get them a little bit young because you got to train them, right?
Right.
Otherwise I would have just rescued anything, but we got this little girl, and
so great.
It's been a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, I want to make sure that we don't forget your pronouns. Can you clarify? Make sure we all know.
Yes. Yes. My pronouns are a she, they.
Perfect. Thank you. And
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, of course. And you identify as a stripper, yeah?
Yeah. Woohoo! Yes, please.
I hope so. I mean, we did strip together. So
yes, we did.
Yeah, so you and I have actually known each other since like 2003. Right?
Yep.
It's a long time ago.
I know.
Yeah. Spearmint Rhino, Van Nuys. Do you remember those days?
Or was it somewhere else first? I mean, yes, that, and Vegas. I think we were in Vegas together too.
Oh my God. And we were at Foreplay together. Are you kidding? It was 3 places.
Yep.
What would have been before Van Nuys? Because I did Blue Zebra in this order: Blue Zebra, Spearmint Rhino, Los Angeles, like downtown LA, and Vegas and Van Nuys, or Van Nuys and Vegas, like.
Downtown LA has kind of like a special soft spot in my heart. They used to say that when you walk in there, it smells like a combination of feet and pussy. Can I say that on here?
Of course. What the fuck you want on this show?
But yeah, I think it was either Yeah, it was Spearmint Rhino Van Nuys, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was where I first met you.
It must have been.
Yeah.
Yes. What a lifetime ago.
It sure was.
Yeah. Do you remember, because I don't remember, we didn't pay house fees back then. Like, we didn't pay to show up and work, and we're negative when we showed up like they do now, right?
No.
Right.
No, they didn't do that. But of course, we tipped on all the dances. Yeah. So if you didn't make any dances, you weren't leaving with $0.
Right.
You were just leaving a little bit like upset. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's just so different now, because I hear about house fees that are like $100 or $150, and I'm like, it's just so funny seeing such a change over the last 2 decades. Like, we just didn't pay that. And even at Foreplay, we didn't pay a house fee. Did we? I don't think so.
You know what? My last many years there, like 7 years, I was a feature. So I was actually one of the lucky ones that actually got paid to walk in the door.
God, I wish.
And before, yeah, it's never enough though. And before, I don't remember, to be honest. I was there a long time, you know, out of all of the, but longer. Like I think I was I was just stripping and doing lap dance. I don't want to say just stripping and doing lap dances, but I was, you know, hitting the floor pretty hard for about 3 years before I started as a feature there.
Right.
I was there for a while. I liked it there.
Yeah. I did not like it there.
There were things.
There were a lot of things. There were a lot of things for me, but also that's where I fell in love with the love of my life from there. So and it was during a time where I was dealing with horophobia, and I had this narrative in my head where it was impossible to be in love and do sex work at the same time. That was my narrative, you know, and I look back on that and realize how naive. Oh, you poor thing, you know, when I look back. But yeah, that's ultimately.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because there's a little story I'd like to share.
I would love it.
About about being at Foreplay around the time when you met the love of your life. Do I have permission to share the story?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So when people say, you know, what do you love about being a stripper? And I would rattle off a bunch of things, but number one on my list was you can say whatever you want in those rooms, like whatever the fuck you want. You can say whatever you want. So I'm in the dressing room and I'm eating like this bowl of rice. I'm eating rice, and you walk over and I'm sitting there. You literally bend over and like kind of like moved your butt cheek to the side, and you were like, does my pussy look okay? And I was like, yeah, like it looks amazing. And I'm like eating my dinner, and then you just walked away. But it was like, I think it was because it was like you had just kind of started having the feels for this person, and you wanted to see that you looked all right. And it was just such an epic moment of like, this is just what happens back here. Like, yeah, girl, yeah, Anne-Marie or Queen of Sexy. Yeah, girl. I almost said girl.
I know. It's hard, especially when we're like between each other. I get it. I'm working on it. Yeah, babe. Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, babe. Yeah. That's so funny. Because
but I'm glad that you mentioned. Yeah.
Sorry, I could have just looked in the mirror. I could have just bent over and looked in the mirror. Like, why was it so necessary to put my vagina in my friend's face?
I thought it was great. Just on GP, like, you know, like, yeah, I got your back. I got your six. You look, it's immaculate.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm glad that you mentioned about the horophobia, and which also another brilliant video that you made about horophobia on Instagram and dating, because at the time I was with the love of my life, and I would hear that message a lot. You know, I was accepted for being a stripper. I mean, you know, it's like when you're dating, I feel like combat veterans and rock stars always merge towards strippers. And I was dating a rock star at the time. And so there was no judgment, tons of freedom. And it was like, great. But I always got this message, which was, oh, I think she's a hoe. I think, you know, she's a prostitute. But I'm like, well, like, what does this person think about me? Like deep down inside, like, am I a hoe? I kind of am, because I like hoes. Hoes are good.
Right.
You know, it's like hoe to me is a positive word, but I'm glad that you're bringing that into the light, that, you know, being a sex worker, being a stripper, so, and like you
Right.
can't have love, like you got to, you know, feel like that horophobia, which, well, I'm a stripper, but at least I'm not a prostitute. You know,
Right.
look at her back there. And it's like, thank you for naming that. Thank you.
Well, I didn't name it. I mean, I learned from other experienced sex workers and sex workers who were a lot more woke than I was at the time, and they opened my eyes to my own whorephobia that was plaguing me. And like, as all, I don't look at it as anybody that suffers from whorephobia. I look at it as like you were born into a system that conditioned you to believe these things about women and the choices they make with their bodies, because we're constantly being sent these messages via the media. And when I say the media, I'm referencing music videos, movies, television, commercials, and so it's like we all fall victim to it. And unless you're a critical thinker and surround yourself with critical thinkers, then you could potentially live with that phobia your whole life, and then you apply that same phobia to your own actions and to yourself, and that increases your negative self-talk on any actions you choose to take with your body. So it's really
Right.
damaging all around. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying out
Yep.
loud what I have learned from other sex workers, so we can thank the sex worker goddesses that came before us, that taught us that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's the social construction of sexualities and of, you know, people embodying a female body, male body, all these, you know, women's liberation and feminism. It's all this stuff, all the things that we put meaning on
Mm.
is socially constructed. And
Yes.
meaning is important, you know, things that are meaningful, that's important. So I kind of vacillate between, you know, social construction being a negative thing, but also like some things are really meaningful. But I think being somewhere in the middle is where, you know, there is happiness. If you can say, yes, this is a social construction of X, Y, and Z, and this is something that really means something to me, but kind of surrender meaning.
Yeah.
Because what is meaning? I mean, does it really exist? If I say, I mean, because we're in this environment, I'll use sex work as an example. If
Okay.
I say um, I specialize in anal fisting, I'm a dom, and that's my specialty,
Right.
and I'm on a date. It doesn't mean anything other than, well, that's your job, right?
Right.
Um, you can put a bunch of meaning to it. The person can say, well, I'm a Christian and I don't believe in that rah, rah, rah. Or you can take the meaning off it. There's no meaning. It doesn't mean anything. And I think the problem is when
Right.
people put meaning on something so much that it causes me to judge you, to not like you, to not want to be around you, to marginalize you. And I think
Right.
that that's where meaning is a problem.
Yeah.
Hmm. I love this book. Oh, actually, this is the polyvagal theory. I thought this was something else,
Hold on. What
but I
is?
thought it was
Oh, you thought it was something else. Okay.
the polyvagal. I thought it was the polyamorous next door, because there's
Oh,
a lot of meaning put behind multiple partners.
right. Which
I'm
I'm
talking too
into.
much.
I love I want to be into polyamory. I just need to find someone who wants to be in it with me. So but like
Yeah.
we had a guest on the podcast, she goes by the name Kinky Slippers, and we talked about polyamory, and one of the things that we discussed was how even within polyamory there can still be a level of emotional immaturity and not enough communication, and responsibility around having multiple partners. And I have seen an example of that, through a friend of mine who, someone she knows is involved in polyamory, and they recently had a situation where someone had their partner had sex with two other people without communicating it first. And but this is also during the time of COVID. So there's even a higher level of responsibility right now, because even the act of talking to somebody in a room with a mask off without responsibly communicating can be an issue for some people. And so, I do recognize that even though polyamory is like so badass and like seems awesome, that there's still such a high level of responsibility. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why, that the contract, so to speak, is so important, because you name, what is going to be the responsibility of all parties, and
Right.
then, stick to it. And if something is broken, you can mend it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in polyamorous relationships before. I'm poly by nature. I always used
My
to say
gosh.
I don't want to steal anyone's joy. So, babe, if you wanna, I used to tell my boyfriend, babe, when you're on tour, like find like a hot blonde chick and have sex with her and tell me all about it. He's like, you're out of your mind. And I'm like, no, really, because that excites me, because I think it's freedom, and freedom
Yeah.
excites me, right?
Yeah.
But yes, there can be problems. Of course, there's still feelings. And I think that's what makes it so exciting, because you get to combat um, feelings of jealousy. You get to
Yeah.
heal all these things. Jealousy can be a wound. There's trauma
Yeah.
behind jealousy, and there's pain there. And I think in poly relationships, I think people can be fully expressed as human beings. I think their full expression of sexuality and creativity and even professionalism. I think everything can be fully expressed in a poly relationship. And there are also problems, as in any relationship.
Right.
But I just think it's the bee's knees.
Yeah, same. Like I said, I don't know if there's like a polyamorous dating app or something.
Let's make one.
Like, where do I even start, because I would want it to be with a responsible person, and I can't even find a responsible person as like a normal dating partner. So,
Yeah.
but then again, I haven't been looking that much lately. I mean, a pandemic really kind of puts the brakes on casual dating,
Yeah.
not so accessible
Yeah.
currently. Yeah, thank God for vibrators.
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so you are going to school right now, right?
Hmm.
To
Yes.
get your PhD. Yes?
Yes, I
Okay,
think
thank God I got
I'm
that
gonna.
right.
Yes, I'm either gonna go for the PhD or for the PsyD, but I'm
Okay.
pretty sure they're both doctorates in psychology. And as much as I love research, like I never thought that I'd love research, and I never thought that I'd be like, "Do you have science to back that up?" When I'm talking to people about stuff, and now that's me. That's me. I'm that person.
Yeah.
But I'm really going to be working with people. And when you do the PsyD route, you learn more like skill to be with people. So yeah,
PsyD? I've never heard of this. Can you explain what that is? A side D?
a PsyD. So I have almost a 4.0, and I'm a horrible speller, so I have to like write this down. It's a capital P, lowercase s, a Y, and a D. A PsyD. It's and I forgot what it stands for, but I can tell you what it means.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do the PhD route, you're mainly focusing on research. So you apply to a university, you're on that university's research team, and you're just mainly doing research. A PsyD, you do a little bit of research, but you're mainly learning, it's a doctorate in learning how to be a psychologist, how to work with people in session, one-on-one, in groups. And,
Okay.
I'm all for traditional psychotherapy, but my jam is somatics. I'm also a somatic sex educator, and I'm also at a separate school studying somatic experiencing, which
Okay.
is a trauma remediation approach. But yeah, I'm doing the PsyD, I'm doing the doctorate, and then one last leg will be getting certified to work with a doctor assisted psychedelics for PTSD.
Okay. We have to get into all of that. So we're going to have to know more about the somatic thing. And then what was the second interesting thing that you said? Psychotherapy?
It is. Oh, yes. So after I get the doctorate, I'm going to get a certification to work with doctor assisted psychedelics. So administering psychedelics
Yeah,
for
psychedelics.
PTSD.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah, man.
we have to break all this down. So tell us what the somatic thing is. I don't know what that is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, so there are two things. They say that in order to get an Italian to stop, how do you get an Italian to stop talking? You tie their hands behind their backs. So I'm just going to put my hands in my lap, not
Okay.
to stop talking, but I can't stop moving. Um, so I am a somatic sex educator, and I study somatic experiencing, which is a trauma remediation modality. And I do that. I do the somatic experiencing at the Trauma Institute, and I got certified in San Francisco at the Institute for the Advanced Study of Human Sexuality. And so, what it is basically, in a nutshell, somatics is creating a space for people to come back into their bodies, track the physiology of their nervous system. We're living in this environment where there's so much trauma, whether it be pervasive trauma from, like, maybe you're in a marginalized community and you're, for so many years you're constantly being put down. Well, that creates trauma. Say you're in a car accident, well, that creates an acute trauma. And we get out of our bodies, we dissociate, and it causes a slew of problems, health problems, emotional problems. And so we basically are trained to track the physiology of the nervous system and help people complete what needs to be completed in their bodies to feel good again, to feel joyful again, to feel pleasure again. Because joy can't exist in a body that's either so activated that people are just, really up here. And joy and pleasure can't exist in a body that's dissociated. Because when you get so upright regulated by trauma, the body's defense mechanism is just to shut down, and then you dissociate. Okay. So my job is to help people find balance and enjoy and pleasure.
Do you suppose when I'm in bed at night and I'm freaking out in my head, which happens sometimes, and then my coping mechanism is to convince / remind myself that I am a visitor in this dimension and that I'm here to observe and learn, and I remind myself that this is temporary and that nothing really matters because I am a visitor in a pretty random dimension. Do you suppose that that is a form of disassociation and potentially not very healthy?
I wouldn't necessarily say that. Yes and no.
Okay.
It can be a form of dissociation, and it can be also a form of something very healthy, which is just changing, like, your thoughts. In cognitive behavioral therapy, it's a technique where the therapist help change your thinking about your thoughts. So if or change the way you think about things. Like if you're claustrophobic and you're in an elevator, instead of, oh my gosh, I can't breathe, well, if I change my thinking, the reality of it is I'm at a safe elevator. If something happens, there's a phone, I'm okay. So it sounds like to me that's what you're doing, and it's a responsible thing to do, to change the way that you think about things, to bring yourself back down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because sometimes I'm like, I don't know how healthy this is. I'm like trying to pretend that, like, I'm not really here and that this is all the matrix, and and so I do go down that rabbit hole a little bit, like, is this okay? Or yeah, you know, but it helps.
I mean, I think it depends on how you look at it, you know? I mean, some may think that it's a form of dissociation, but to me it sounds like a responsible way to get through like all of these things that we're feeling right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
I'll
know?
tell you what,
Yeah.
it does. The whole world does seem topsy-turvy, and it does feel like a brand new place in a way, you know? Anyway, it's just been interesting noticing that um life is just so different these days than it was a year ago. And then when I look back on our life, when we were dancing nude in the LA strip clubs, it's just so interesting, like the phases of life and how everything changes around us. I'm just acknowledging that and feeling that these days.
Now like the SCP is coming out, and I want to say, well, how does that feel? Is it a good feeling? I mean, does it feel good?
I don't know how it feels. I have a lot of figuring things out to do. I've been microdosing mushrooms. That helps. So, and speaking of that, because that is something that you're also getting into, right? The healing via psychedelics.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell us
Yeah.
about that?
Well, it first came to mind when a dear friend of mine who served as a combat veteran, a Navy SEAL, shared with me a story about somebody that they know who had gone and gotten some treatment in a different country for their PTSD, and I thought, wow, it's really interesting. And then I'm surrounded by combat veterans. It just happens to be that for a lot of different reasons, I'm around them a lot,
Yeah.
and I love working with them. I've worked with many of them, and I had the privilege of bearing witness to the most amazing story I've ever heard about
Mm.
war and PTSD and coming back to goodness. And it involved somebody being part of the MDMA trials for the Department of Veterans Affairs. And I didn't know the VA was doing this.
MDMA
Um,
trials? Nice.
uh, yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a beautiful story. And I come from a military family. My sister served, my partner served, a couple of my lovers served, my uncle, and some of them got really really clumped up in war. So I have a heart for veterans, like big time.
Okay.
And I've committed after this long track of academia, and as you can tell, I move around constantly. I'm a dancer, I'm a mover, and to do this education is a lot for me, but I've committed to finishing the doctorate and getting this certification to work with psychedelic assisted therapies, because of the stories that I've heard of goodness restored. And Johns Hopkins is doing studies, Stanford's in the middle of a study right now, and it's really exciting because they're finding some some good benefits in these microdosing, along with
Yeah.
kind of other modalities to go with it. And I think it's really exciting, and I think it's relevant, and I think it's important.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, like, I'm like a naked, peaceful, like heavy metal loving hippie. And I wish we could just all be peaceful, but the reality of our world is that somebody, politics aside, let's put that aside, somebody has to do this job, and that's the job of the troop.
Yeah.
And when these people come back from the battlefield, it's like, whatever you'll need, if you want us to do studies and on psychedelics, or like whatever you need that's going to work, let's do it. Let's do it.
That's like their
So
sentiment, you're saying? Like the veterans are like,
that's
yeah.
that's my sentiment.
Okay.
Like I see them come back, and I've seen some get better, and I've seen, a lot of them are that's a whole other conversation. That's a
Sure.
long story. I can talk
Okay.
forever on that. But bottom line is I'm really committed to this for all people. But I have to say that my baby projects are combat veterans and sex workers, to help with this
Yeah.
trauma. Yeah.
So John Hopkins is studying healing through psychedelics?
Yes, ma'am.
That's
There's a
incredible.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, because
yeah.
like that just gives validity to like this extremely like what's considered a legal drug, right? Aren't psychedelics Schedule 1 drugs considered by our government?
Yes, MDMA still is.
Right.
I think it's an organ now. You can buy like psilocybin mushrooms legally,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, MDMA is Schedule 1, and unless it's being used in an experiment. So the MDMA can be used if it's being used in an experiment that's being conducted through university.
That's unfair. That's unfair.
Mm,
Like whatever.
yeah.
Like why do you get to play with it and we can't?
Yeah.
I mean, we do.
Yeah.
I do when I want, I don't care. I just break the law. Oh, am I incriminating myself right now?
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, but hundreds of other people will. It's fine. It's fine. I don't care. Come and get me. Um,
Yeah.
so so in this work that you're doing, do you and let me know if you shouldn't answer this, but do you get the opportunity to have sessions where either you or someone that you're working with is taking a psychedelic and then you like practice a conversation, or what does that look like?
That I'm not doing that yet.
Okay.
I am personally years away from that, but the people that are doing it, yes. So what it can look like and what it does look like is a patient or participant is administered a certain amount of psychoactive drugs, and then yes, there's a conversation, and the administrator acts as a guide, but also they are practicing a form of somatic experiencing, which
Mm,
is continually helping the person check in with their body, and that's all I know about it.
mm-hmm.
And I know that like I need to do it. Like
Okay.
I need to do it. It just
Yeah,
makes sense to every molecule in my body, every cell in my body. It resonates as something that I need to do.
that's
Yeah.
really nice. That I understand that feeling. So, yeah. That's incredible. I was just having a conversation with my sister today about how I just refuse to do work that I don't like to do, that I only do what I like to do or what's like a deep calling from within, and like that's what I will do. And if it's not a deep calling, I just don't partake, and so that I think that's really great that you feel that like this intense deep calling, and I wish that for so many others, for so many people.
I do too, because I've been fortunate in that when I was from the time I was 16, I dreamt of being a stripper, and
Yes.
I was one. you know
Yeah,
I became one on my 18th birthday,
I love it.
and for 20 years I had this dream that I wanted to be a sexological body worker and a sex educator, and that happened. For many years I wanted to be a psychologist. That is happening. So I've always done things that I love doing, that I'm super passionate about.
Right.
And coming this reminds me of coming back to the club, the strip club. When it became time for me to leave the club, I didn't lose my passion for it. I became disappointed with it.
Mm,
And I'll tell you why. because the more education that I got, especially as a sex educator, the more that I realized that I couldn't stand for what was happening in those rooms. Like, aside from what's happening with the management, that's a whole other enchilada. But here you have customers that come in that don't know how to talk to performers, that don't know how to touch performers, that is, if they're given permission, that don't know how to even be with a performer. And I'm saying performer because I don't want to say woman, because it may not be, you know, but they can, because what do they have? Money. So essentially what we were doing is reinforcing their poor behavior towards us by faking we were interested. So because we got to pay rent, and then off they go, thinking that that's how they can be with people in the world. And like, I couldn't stand for it anymore. Like, I wanted more for them, and I wanted more for myself. Like, I wanted to be like, why can't this be a situation where it's, you come in here and you actually get to learn. You get to learn how to talk to somebody. You get to learn how to touch. Go ahead. I know you're
No, you're bringing up an excellent point. You're right. Yes, and you're actually bringing up something that I wanted to make sure that we cover, which is that you have a fantasy that customers would come to strip clubs to appreciate amazing dancing and learn how to treat strippers in a way that makes us love giving lap dances.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
That like elicits like a deep breath. Like, that's my nervous system discharging some energy. Yes, please. Because it could be like that. It could be like that.
It definitely could be. The whole system is run by a group of men. The whole strip club system, it was created by them. It's always been run by them, with a very small percentage of females being in a head charge position. And I was just talking with this has come up in the last 24 hours. This conversation around how our men have never been educated around sex and how to treat a woman around sex. So to give you an example, a friend of mine recently has a new boyfriend. My friend was tired, went to sleep early, didn't want to have sex that night with their partner, and the partner's response was, "You really hurt my feelings." Exactly. Exactly. And my response to my friend was, well, you tell him that the choices that you make with your body have absolutely nothing to do with his feelings. And then right after that, I said, Jesus, this is because we don't educate people in general about sex. And because men are physically stronger, it's super important to teach them about sex and how to treat women's bodies. But here they are flailing around because our patriarchal system and religious society that we live in doesn't want to talk about sex. So we create.
Why would they? Because not talking about it benefits the patriarch. I mean, I hate to be that person because I tend to be more moderate, but it's like it benefits the people that are benefiting from giving nothing in the bedroom and getting everything and expecting everything, and that's a problem. We think, because I think there's a notion that because sex is a biological drive and a need, that we should know how to do it. But I got news for you. We don't know how to do it. We need to be taught. And penis owners especially, it's a carryover from the Victorian era, when scientists and doctors said women aren't sexual beings. They're not. So men visited prostitutes to get their rocks off and come home to their wives that they had children with. But the problem is, today, what most people with a vulva report, if they're having sex with a penis owner, is that it's P and V sex, the penis ejaculates, and we're all done. We're all done here. And that is not... that is not it, my friend. Right. And it's a problem. It's a problem, and I'm committed to helping that with that, as you know, as well, in terms of
Yes.
educating all of us, giving vulva owners a voice. Like, we need to learn how to have a voice, and practice using that voice. And also,
Yeah.
we need to way slow down how we have sex. And that's also a whole nother hour of conversation. So I'll stop there. But these conversations are important because vulva owners need to know that P and V sex with one ejaculation, honey, that ain't where it at.
Right.
Person, friend, there's so much more.
Yes, how do we reach these kids? Like, I am so grateful that you're doing the work, and like, how do we get proper sex education to the younger generation so we can start with them at a young age? Like, I feel like there's just so many barriers because of this conservative, puritanical type society that we live in, specifically in America. I mean, I'm sure that this exists elsewhere, but I just don't know enough. So I'm going to generalize America instead. But like,
Mhm.
how, what do we do? And I don't really expect you to have the answer, but it's something that I think about a lot. Like, how do we educate the younger generation and start talking to them about the things that, like, about sex and drugs early on, so that they know what they're doing instead of trying to figure out by themselves, because no one will teach them.
Did you know that several states don't even by law have to teach accurate sex education? The tiny amount of sex education they teach anyway, some states still to this day by law aren't required to teach accurate information. Holy cow, that's crazy. Here comes my inner nerd. But yeah, that's a true thing.
No, I did
It's a
not
true
know
thing.
that. And
Yeah.
is there like a cabinet position for sex education?
I think there should be. I'll tell you what I think needs to happen is I think
Mm.
there needs to be a whole revamping of sex education. I know that we're on a time limit here. We're both looking up at the clock. It has to be comprehensive and inclusive and completely redone. And that will be a start. But also, as a somatic sex educator, any young penis owner, I'll throw it out there. Any young person, if you're 18 to 25, and if you read The Anatomy of Female Arousal, I will give you a free coaching session.
Wow.
I stand by that.
Okay. All
I stand
right.
by that.
Well, I hope that there are
Yeah.
18 to 25-year-old penis owners listening to this right
You
now.
know what? Let's just open it up. How about everyone?
Okay.
Everyone out there, if you read The Anatomy of Female Arousal, I will session with you once for free. That's how
Wow.
committed I am.
That's amazing. Thank you for that
Yeah.
offer. Perfect.
Yeah.
Want to be fabulous just like these strippers? Pay attention. It's Stripper Tips.
My stripper tip is this. Whether it's an acupuncturist, a massage therapist, or a therapist, seek out a practitioner that you see, whether it be twice a month or once a month on a regular basis, who is somatically informed, that can help you come back to your body. Because the nature of the job with marginalization and pervasive trauma around sex workers, because of the nature of it, we need that. And the argument can be, I can't afford it, but you can't afford not to. So session, self-care, self-care.
Okay.
Because even for those that love this work, we need to see somebody that can help us
Yeah.
come back to our bodies.
Yeah. Thank you.
Get ready for our rapid fire question round. It's time for 4 for 1.
First
Okay.
question. If you could live in any fictional world from books, TV, or movies, what world would you live in?
Fictional world, I would be probably like in Twilight with vampires and werewolves.
Yeah, they're so sexy.
Super sexy.
Aren't they kids, though? Is that gross? Is that weird? Have you ever had lice as a kid?
Yes.
Me too. Is cereal Soup? Why or why not?
Cereal is not soup because I have no answer for that. It's just not soup. I changed my answer. Cereal is soup. It's soup, and it is because you eat it with the spoon.
And it's liquid. Yeah. I would say yes too. Last one. What's invisible but you wish people could see?
My penis.
Yes. That's so cool. Wow. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I do wish we had more time. That would be amazing because there's so many things that like I want to get into more with you. But so how can people follow you to learn more about the things? And do you have anything coming up that you would like people to know about?
I do have. You can follow me at House of Sensual Arts on Instagram, and you can also follow me. I have to look because it's kind of a new page that's waiting to be finished. And pleasure method underscore method on Instagram. And I do have these workshops coming up on genital mapping and finding one's sexual voice. And those will be advertised on pleasure underscore method really soon. And yeah.
Awesome.
That's what's coming up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has just been so enlightening. So thank you for sharing all of your experiences, and it's lovely to see your face, and I look forward to the day we can see each other in person again. That would be lovely.
Me too. And thank you so much for having me. It's
You're
just,
so
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks to you too, as always, for tuning in. Catch this podcast every Wednesday when we drop it in the mornings. See you next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening, everyone. This episode has been a production with Period Podcast Network. Find out more on Instagram at Period Podcast Network. Be sure to follow us on Instagram too at YAS, a stripper podcast, and you can find us on Twitter at YAS, a stripper pod. Please like, subscribe, and rate YAS, a stripper podcast here on YouTube. See you next week.